Your engine produces both torque and horsepower, but what is the difference between them, and which one is the most important? Do diesel engines produce more torque, and gasoline engines produce more horsepower? These questions will be answered in the upcoming minutes. Torque versus horsepower. Let's start by explaining torque. Torque is a twisting force that is applied at a distance. For example, the wrench, you apply a force on the wrench at a distance from the center. As this distance increases, the torque will also increase even when applying the same amount of force. The unit of torque is pound-foot or Newton-meter, which is the same unit of the work. For this reason, we say torque is simply the ability of a vehicle to perform work. Let's see how this is applied to the engine. When the combustion takes place in the engine, the piston is pushed down, which applies a force on the crankpin, and this force is transferred to the shaft to get it spinning. The distance between the crankpin and the crankshaft is the same as the distance between the nut and your hand on the wrench applying force. As this distance increases, the torque also increases. Now let's see how horsepower works. Power, in general, is the measurement of how quickly the work is done. So if two persons are tightening the same amount of bolts using a wrench by applying the same torque, but the second person was faster and finished first, we say that the second person is more powerful. Using a device called a dynamometer, we could find the torque of any car at any RPM. And the horsepower is simply torque multiplied by RPM divided by 5252, which is a conversion constant. This means that the faster the crankshaft spins, the higher the horsepower will be. Now let's find why diesel engines usually produce more torque and gasoline engines more horsepower. As we all know, diesel has a higher compression ratio, which means that the piston would travel further, and that means that the distance between the crankpin and the crankshaft is greater, which means more torque. Since the piston travels further to finish a revolution, this means we have less horsepower being produced. The same idea is completely reversed in the gasoline engine, having a lower torque but a higher horsepower. Now, what about you? Which number do you have to focus on more? If you have to do a lot of work and carry heavy loads with your vehicle or travel for long distances, then torque is what you need. But if you are traveling a shorter distance and need more speed and acceleration, then you need more horsepower. When you choose a car to buy, do you focus more on torque or horsepower? And which other stats and numbers do you consider important for you when choosing your car?